Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex Podcast, the NBA. No, this is the NFL edition. I thought it was the NBA because I was looking at my notes and all of these crazy trades for the trade deadline. We're going to discuss that. I am your host, Bryan. As always, I am joined by Matthew Freedman and Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSU Ram 88. And this week we have special guests, even though I think he was just on a pod with us. It was right before the season, so it was just a couple months ago. Chris Raybon. You have heard him on our pods many times before. He's a 4for4 football senior DFS editor, the host of his own DFS podcast, the DFSMVP podcast, in general, just projections guru. Raybon, how you doing, man?
What's going on, fellas?
Let's dive right into it. I'd like to start with these trades. We normally do a real or fake segment where we talk about some things that are standing out that are just real or fake from the past week or just from the season. But just because of the trade deadline and some crazy movement that we don't normally see in the NFL, I think it would be nice just to touch on those. So let's start. Let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, who was traded to the San Francisco 49ers. It has been announced that he will not start this week. We're still going to have Beathard get the start at quarterback, but we would assume that he would be starting sooner rather than later. So let's go ahead and just sort of dissect the trade, what it means for the 49ers in the future. Freedman, you want to start?
Yeah, it's really intriguing. So I think the fact that they were able to get Garoppolo for what will likely be a very high second rounder throws some shade to the idea that the Patriots were able to get or were passing up multiple first-round picks just a few months ago. I think that's something that was pretty inflated. This is very curious. The 49ers traded away a high second rounder basically to have the privilege / obligation of having to pay Garoppolo a fairly high salary starting next year, with having only probably anywhere from 5 to 7 games of evaluation on him in their system. And Shanahan's system isn't, reportedly an easy one to pick up. So we don't really even know if we're going to be seeing actual Garoppolo or if we're just going to be seeing a watered down version of his capabilities and a watered down version of the offense. So I don't know. It's kind of bad timing. If they were going to do something like this, I think it would have made sense to do it earlier in the season, but they probably wanted to see how Hoyer was as a bridge or how Beathard was as some sort of potential future quarterback. I mean, I get it, but I don't think it makes much sense for DFS. And then also I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the franchise.
Raybon, what are your thoughts on this trade?
Yeah, I'm kind of a little confused about it too, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to see, okay, we have 8 games left in the season. What do we really have in this guy? Because the thing about it is we know they were essentially going to be in the quarterback market next year regardless. Hoyer was a disaster. Beathard doesn't look much better. And so, if they come into the offseason and let's say they can't get a guy like Kirk Cousins, they're really back at square one. So I think what they wanted to do was they just wanted to get these 8 games or however many games to at least get a sense of what Garoppolo can do in some extended action. I guess it looks like it's going to be 5 games that he's going to play. So they're going to start him around week 12. So, I mean, in terms of evaluation, I guess I kind of get it. They just want to see him rather than go off, what did he play? I think he had 63 attempts in 2016. So I get it from that angle. For DFS, I'm just wondering if he's going to throw Pierre Garçon his first touchdown. I'm not sure if Pierre Garçon's going to get a touchdown for these next 4 weeks because it's been a struggle. But, that's kind of what I think. I just think they wanted to do some evaluations. I know they probably had a couple extra picks, in that deal with Chicago or whatnot. So I think, at the quarterback position, it's kind of that one position where you have to take a little more risk and kind of behave a little more abnormally than you would at other positions. So from that angle, I guess I don't really hate it, but I'm kind of anxious to see exactly what their plan is and how well he's going to perform.
Yeah. So Pete, it's been reported that Garoppolo's not actually going to play this week, but when we thought he was going to play, the line moved from about 2.5 to a pick 'em. Do you think that that's sort of what he's worth for this offense?
Potentially. I mean, I'm kind of, I guess, on an island here. I love this trade for both sides. In general, I'm happy that we're seeing more trades in the NFL and NBA. I think it's great as a sports fan. And there should be situations that are mutually beneficial. A lot of times that trade should occur. And for me, this is a perfect spot here in the NFL where the Patriots obviously know they don't want to invest a ton of money in 2 quarterbacks. They wanted to get an asset for Garoppolo because they're convinced that Brady's going to play for a couple more years, maybe even longer. And for them, getting a second-round pick makes a ton of sense, right? That's a really smart thing, and I love it from the Patriots, basically stance, because they're not going to pay 2 quarterbacks that amount of money. From San Francisco's standpoint, I mean, you got to find your quarterback. Like, that's the name of the game in the NFL. You have to have a franchise-type quarterback to give yourself a chance to be competitive. You definitely need a really good quarterback or an amazing defense to have a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs. And taking a shot on Garoppolo, I think, makes a lot of sense. I mean, he's looked really good in the times that he's played. Obviously, it's with the Patriots, but he's a guy that has been groomed by Belichick and McDaniels, played under Tom Brady, watched all his habits. I mean, everything I've seen, I think there's at least, a good opportunity to see what you have. And the one nice thing for San Francisco is they get to hopefully see 4 or 5 games in their own system. Kyle Shanahan, I think, is a really sharp offensive mind. And if they believe that this is their guy, then they'll go ahead and pay him. I mean, that's going to be the deal here. So I like it. I think it's a mutually beneficial trade, and I hope we see more of those going forward.
Pete, can I ask a follow-up question on this?
Yeah.
So which would you, if you were an NFL GM, which would you rather have? Would you rather spend a second rounder in a trade and then have, let's say, 5 games to evaluate a quarterback and then basically have to pay him near franchise level money right away? Or would you rather spend a first or a second round pick on a rookie quarterback and then have, years to evaluate him and train him in your system before you have to pay him franchise type of money?
Well, that's a great question. I certainly understand that that's the argument against going with Garoppolo here. But, the one nice thing is Garoppolo should be ready sooner. I think that's important to Kyle Shanahan. I think it's dynamic relative to what you think about the quarterbacks coming in. Obviously, San Francisco is primed to have a first or second pick. They're battling with Cleveland for that top spot. So I think it's dynamic in that regard. But, I mean, I think you got to take as many swings as you can. I don't hate the idea of taking Garoppolo, paying him, and then drafting another guy. Like, you have to find your quarterback. I mean, it's the definitive most important position. So I don't mind taking multiple guys. I mean, look what the Redskins did. They drafted RG3, who everyone thought was going to be the man. And they drafted Kirk Cousins behind him. And, they're still trying to figure out if they should pay Cousins. But having depth at that position is certainly good. And even the Patriots, I mean, now they're getting an asset for Garoppolo. So I think it's worth it. I mean, the other option, Cousins would be certainly on the market, or it looks like he's going to be on the market, but you can't bank on that. Cousins is probably going to get somewhat like a max deal. So I don't know. I think it's pretty smart. I understand the argument. Do you guys like a lot of quarterbacks in this upcoming draft?
Well, it's
highly touted.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few.
The Browns are all in on this draft.
Yeah, there are a few who are interesting. I mean, I think just to, like, the counterpoint, and we should move on so this doesn't devolve into being just like the Garoppolo show. But the counterpoint is that even when the Redskins did pay up to get Robert Griffin III, they spent only a 4th round pick on Kirk Cousins, right? Like, they invested in their option B in a very cheap manner. And so it's just a question of, how much they want to invest in the quarterback position. And I think there's merit to investing a lot in the position. But also one more thing, the track record of backup quarterbacks behind Tom Brady when they go on to other places is actually pretty trashy. Yeah, so for whatever that's worth. Yeah.
I think Garoppolo, coming into the season, like, the market for him was definitely a first-round pick. So, I mean, at least you got a little bit of a discount. I mean, It's easy to say, like, he's looked great in a small sample size with one of the best teams and great coaches. But, we should move on.
Yeah, all right. Let's move on. Let's hit on these other 2 trades quickly here. So the second one we'll hit on, Ajayi traded from the Miami Dolphins to the Philadelphia Eagles. He really struggled this year behind this very bad Dolphins offensive line after looking pretty good last year. So I think there's a lot of, like, sort of mixed, ideas of what Ajayi is as a running back. Raybon, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Ajayi, his role in Philadelphia? They've already announced that, they were not super happy with his consistency, so we expect Ajayi to be the main guy moving forward. But would you expect him to be a 3-down guy, or do you think Wendell Smallwood will still be involved? And how do you expect this backfield to break down?
Like Ajayi, I think that they will probably bring him along somewhat slowly in terms of being that 3-down guy, just because they have some other backs that they can kind of use in the passing game. You know, Smallwood, even Corey Clement I think he caught a touchdown on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago. So they're certainly not lacking for receiving backs. But I think, I think they really just like Ajayi's talent. And I think we really have to talk about Adam Gase. And because I think that this move just shows that Adam Gase is a fraud. I think he made a huge mistake here. I think he's overreacting to a one bag. I mean, granted, their whole season they had offensive struggles, but they kind of turned it around. They had won their last 3 games. They put up 31 points the week before. And, you know, they come in on a short week with the backup quarterback. He throws 2 touchdowns to the other team. He's missing on pretty much every second and third down throw, to the point where Tony Romo is just like, he just needs to get that a little more to, you know, like, and I don't think Adam Gase just kind of went off and kind of called out all his players. He essentially called out Ajayi, saying, you know, we can't be looking to hit home runs with our running style. But I mean, I don't think that was the problem at all. If you look back to last season, Adam Gase gets credited with saving Miami's season by switching to this run-first philosophy and kind of putting the offense on Ajayi. But really, the Dolphins wouldn't have been winning those games if Ajayi hadn't been hitting home runs. I mean, Ajayi went for 200 yards, 2-3 times last year. His big runs were the differences in a lot of games. And, you know, I think that, you know, if you look at just his grade in PFF, he's the 6th best runner this season, Ajayi is. So, I mean, as much as Adam Gase wants to say, you know, this is Ajayi's problem, I don't think this was an Ajayi problem at all. I think he was the best player on that offense. I think Philadelphia got a steal. And for a team that's doing this well, it's the best team in the NFL right now, to get this kind of player. I think it could reap huge dividends, because in fantasy, what are we always looking for in DFS? We're looking for these running backs that are going to be in positive game script, you know, going to be, you know, their team's going to be favored a lot. And I think Philadelphia being, you know, having the best record in the league, you're going to see a lot of pretty good game script for the rest of the season from these Eagles. You have Carson Wentz playing at a high level. I know they still lost their left tackle, but I think that's another reason they probably got Ajayi. They probably want to rely on the run game a little bit more, just with Lane Johnson out. So I think really good move for Philadelphia. I think you're going to see Ajayi probably get those 20-plus carries. You'll probably see him brought on a little slowly in the passing game, but I think it was a really good move for Philly.
Responses? Yeah, Raybon coming in hot there.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add except one. Raybon is awesome, and I agree with basically everything he just said. And 2, Ajayi, even if you take out his big game, so like the 200 rushing yard performances last year, he's had a couple of 100-yard games this year. If you remove a lot of his big performances, he still has looked good in certain efficiency metrics, especially stuff like missed tackles. So there's still a lot to like about him. The Miami offensive line has been very poor. The one thing I'm a little less certain on Ajayi's ability to get a lot of carries, because the Eagles, presumably they will want to shift to more of a run-heavy offense with this acquisition, but they haven't ever really committed to a runner, and maybe that's just been a function of the running backs that they've had to date in Peterson's tenure, and I think that's probably the case. So I think with the trade, they do want to commit to Ajayi, but they still have been really reluctant to give a runner 20 carries per game. So I think they're definitely going to be flash spots, and I think that we're going to see some touchdown progression from Ajayi. I think that's going to be one of the big things that we get out of him. But I don't know if we're still going to see him get nearly the volume that he was getting in Miami.
Yeah, it'd be tough to have touchdown regression with Ajayi. Pete, what are your thoughts on Ajayi? And then let's go ahead and move to the last trade that we'll briefly touch on here before we get into our main section of the podcast. Kelvin Benjamin traded to the Buffalo Bills today for a couple draft picks next year.
Yeah, I like Kelvin Benjamin. It's kind of weird what the Bills have done. They trade Sammy Watkins for Jordan Matthews. They've released a ton of players. They've done a whole bunch of stuff with their roster. They've played better than people think, or people thought coming into the season. So I like the Kelvin Benjamin thing. I mean, I think it makes sense, when you have someone like Tyrod Taylor who can, buy a lot of time in the pocket. You can throw some jump balls up to him in the red zone. I certainly think Benjamin will help. So the interesting thing to me is going to be if Benjamin comes out and says a lot about Cam Newton. That's one dynamic I am certainly interested to see. Brian, you're a Carolina guy. Well, what are your thoughts?
I have some pretty strong thoughts about the Panthers. I hated that they took Christian McCaffrey, and I really just hate their offense. They've like just been scheming every single freaking play for like a Christian McCaffrey like short little pass. It just like he's like the focal point of their offense, and he's like James White. It's just like terrible. And so I just hate that like he's like the focal point, and trading away Kelvin Benjamin is like almost like another step in that direction. I know that's probably like hot take. Yeah, I'm using hyperbole here, but the McCaffrey thing bothered me. Their offense bothers me, and this was not a step in the direction that I was hoping for. Freedman, Raybon, you guys have any thoughts there?
Let's kick it to Raybon.
I think it's interesting. I think there's one thing that you have to look back on, which I think I don't know. I haven't seen any press conferences or heard anything yet. So, but one thing you have to look at is in 2015, their Super Bowl season, they were 15-1, right? And Cam Newton essentially had his best season of his career. He was producing. And if you look at his receivers in that season, he had Greg Olsen, of course, but he also had Ted Ginn and Devin Funchess and Corey Brown and Jericho Cotchery. Kelvin Benjamin was out that year. Now, that season, Ted Ginn was really the surprise. 10 touchdowns on 44 catches. Not a good catch rate, 97 targets, but Ted Ginn kind of really put that offense over the edge just because he hit so many splash plays. And I think the year after that, they kind of looked at Cam and they said, well, Cam Newton, we know he's kind of inaccurate, especially down the field. He's never going to be the most accurate guy. So they thought it would be this brilliant idea to get them these twin towers, so to speak, this season, where you have Benjamin on one side and you have Funchess on the other side, and they didn't really have that same kind of speed threat unless they're going to three wide with Shepard or Curtis Samuel. So I think now what you're probably going to see is Samuel or Shepard or whoever on the outside, and that just gives them a little more speed. And I think that has been a struggle for the Carolina offense just over Cam Newton's career almost, where they haven't really been a fast offense. So from that vantage point, I guess I'm skeptical that it's really going to work. I still think Kelvin Benjamin was the better of him and Funchess. I know a lot of people kind of, act like they're the same guy, but I thought Kelvin Benjamin is a better player. But if maybe they just need, one kind of big tall guy and one kind of speed guy on the outside, if that helps Cam Newton, then I think that's what you got to go with, because the one thing about it is, when you have Benjamin and Funchess as your two starting receivers, they take a really long time to get open. They're these two big lumbering guys. You're not really going to be able to throw a lot of quick hitting plays to them. And the offensive line has struggled this year. And, we want the whole goal of this year seemed to be in the offseason was to get the ball out of Cam Newton's hands quicker. And I think that's why you're seeing so much scheming to McCaffrey. So I don't think it's maybe as bad as some people think in Carolina. If Cam Newton can kind of make it work, that remains to be seen, because not everyone is Ted Ginn either. But as far as Buffalo, I think it's good for Buffalo too, because I think you guys alluded to it. Tyrod Taylor can buy time in the pocket, and I think they needed a guy where they could just throw it to, and he comes down with some plays, because Zay Jones has really been struggling. And, Jordan Matthews has kind of shown what he really is, which is he's not really an alpha dog number one guy. He's kind of just a reliable slot receiver that's not really going to pop up on the stat sheet too much. And then they've been getting all these kind of, Andre Holmes and Deontay Thompson flash here and there. But they needed like a guy that Tyrod can kind of drop back and really just throw some balls up to, and not always have to rely on McCoy or Tolbert to punch it in down in the red zone. So I think it'll help them in the red zone. I think it'll help Tyrod Taylor maybe get over 200 yards a few more times this season. But I'm kind of curious to see exactly how it shakes out in Carolina. I think it actually might be a blessing in disguise for them.
Interesting. Okay, let's get into Week 9. I think we've spent enough time on these trades. Obviously, we'll hit on them if necessary. Really, only the Ajayi situation is really going to affect NFL Week 9, but we'll talk through those over the next couple of weeks. All right, so NFL Week 9, there are 6 more teams on bye. We have the Bears, Browns, Chargers, Vikings, Patriots, and Steelers on bye. The Thursday night game this week is the Bills and the Jets, and then the Sunday night game, Raiders at the Dolphins. So that's not on DK main slate. And then the Monday night game is Detroit and Packers. So another abbreviated slate, which is going to make things interesting with the players we have available. All right, so we're recording this on Tuesday night. That's always the disclaimer that I give. But we will do our best just based on pricing, matchups, stuff like that, to identify the chalk as best we can. So first things first, when we're making lineups this week, who are the first players that we're tending to lock in? Who are some of the chalky plays that right now we're fine with potentially being in our cash game court? Raybon, I'll start with you. Who are some of the guys that you've looked at?
I think the two guys that I keep coming back to are Mark Ingram and Lamar Miller. I mean, Mark Ingram, since Adrian Peterson has been out, he's got at least 5 targets and at least 18 carries in every game. He's averaging well over 20 touches per game. He's actually been one of the most heavily used running backs in the league over these past 3 weeks since they traded Adrian Peterson. So I think you have to like him as a home favorite against this shaky Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that ranks 21st in schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And then Lamar Miller, he's just really benefiting from Deshaun Watson. I mean, Lamar Miller was always kind of getting the work, but it was unflashy with him. You weren't really getting a lot of spiked weeks. You're kind of just getting those, 70 to 90 yards with usually no touchdowns. But Lamar Miller is scoring a little bit more. I think he has 2 multi-touchdown games over his last 4 games. And against this Colts defense, which is probably the NFL's worst, arguably the NFL's worst defense, I think you want exposure to that defense with the running back. And those two guys are kind of the guys that I'm coming back to just because it's kind of a tough slate in terms of the wide receiver position. And it's a tough slate if you really want to pay up for Deshaun Watson as well. In cash, you're going to have to make some tough choices. So I find myself not going up to necessarily Gurley or Kareem Hunt as much at that running back position and kind of slotting in Ingram and Miller at a little bit of a discount. They probably don't have quite as much upside as the two I just mentioned, but they're right there and they have really good matchups. So I think it kind of offsets it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting slate with the pricing for sure. This Houston-Indy game is probably going to be pretty popular. Houston for the seemingly 4th or 5th week in a row is just going to be the uber chalk. Pete, I know you usually like to pay down for quarterbacks and cash games. Is that viable this week, or is it just really that hard to get up to Sean?
You got some backup quarterbacks that you can go to if you want to pay down at quarterback. I'm with Raybon in terms of the chalk. I like the Saints quite a bit in this spot. I think, I've always obviously been high on Kamara. Every single week, I'm going to use him a ton again in tournaments. I think the matchup's amazing for him. We saw the early rushing touchdown. Obviously, a better game script for him is going to be throwing the football, but I think both Kamara and Ingram are going to be chalk and really good plays. Ingram will be more heavily owned than Kamara, but those are intriguing. And then this is the week to me that Michael Thomas really gets off. I mean, I think 7,600 on DraftKings, it's a reasonable price tag, and the way you want to attack Tampa Bay for sure is through the air. So I really like Michael Thomas. I think he'll end up being a pretty chalky play as we get farther into the week. I love the Lamar Miller call. Quarterback, Watson will still probably end up being pretty chalk, but you do have to pay a huge premium for him. So it's interesting in terms of kind of early roster construction build. I don't have Watson right now, just on the teams I made quickly, but I could certainly see him being a guy that you feel like you have to jam in later, given how amazing he's been in this matchup with the Colts.
Freedman, round us out here.
I like the guys that they've mentioned. And just to give some color to this Texans game against the Colts, the Texans are scoring the most points in the league. The Colts are allowing the most points in the league. By the Vegas plus-minus metric I've created, the Texans are outperforming their implied total more than any other team in the league. And the Colts are allowing opponents to outscore their implied total more than any other team in the league. So just in terms of Vegas data up to this point in the season, this is such a smash spot for the Texans. So however it is that you can get some of these players into your cash game lineup is something you want to do. And Lamar Miller definitely seems to be a guy to consider. Totally understand Deshaun Watson is expensive. Other guys that you could maybe go with would be Dak or Russ. Both of them are at home, so good spots there for them. I agree with Ingram. For wide receivers, I do like Thomas in that spot going against the Buccaneers, who are top 2 in points allowed to opposing wide receivers. So a good spot there for him. The one downside is that the Saints aren't throwing the ball quite as much as they have in previous seasons, so not quite as much upside there for Thomas. And I do like Doug Baldwin at home as a big home favorite going against Washington.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of guys that we want to pay up for, which is going to make it interesting.
Just really would probably be chalked to. I had him written down.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, 5K. Pete, I think you played him in cash games last week, right?
Yeah, I played him a ton, and man, last week was like so close. And I can show you. I can send you guys a link. Amari Cooper, I had 166 on FD, lost to Papa Gates by 0.2 and a bunch of Qs, and then the 1500. 0.2 separated another 20,000, and then 0.4 separated 70,000. And my squad was Wilson, McCoy, Ingram, Richardson, Fuller, Cooper, and then Jimmy Graham, defense kicker. So another week, another house lost on Amari Cooper. But, Jimmy Graham was critical last week. He bailed me out in a big way. So I think he'll be chalk at his price.
At least you're consistent, Pete. We'll give you credit for that. Yeah.
Just lose more money on Amari Cooper, and he's going to go off this week. He's on the prime time kind of slate. He only goes off when he's not on the main slate on DraftKings.
Raybon, this is off topic, but is there a player who's like your kryptonite, just like a guy you can't quit?
Oof, man, not to that level. I would say Cam Newton messes me up sometimes. Like I never get the Panthers right. Period. Like the Panthers and the Bucks to a certain extent. Like I just never get them quite right. Yeah. I just have week to week. Like they don't play really according to matchup or anything. They just kind of, like Jameis Winston will go out and throw for 380 on the road, or Cam Newton will like have like 100 yards at home. Like it's just
makes no sense. Yeah, makes no sense.
You should never be biased towards an individual player. You should never feel like you're pod committed. But yet in 5 years, I've never been guilty really of that ever until this year with Amari Cooper. And so far, I guess with Tim Hardaway Jr. too.
Tim Hardaway, that's right.
Yeah, pretty biased towards him.
Talk about it.
All right. Let's keep on moving. Let's talk about chalky fades and leverage and pivot plays. So which chalky players are we looking to pivot away from potentially, and then who might be some of the leverage and pivot plays, some of the contrarian ones maybe in tournaments? Pete, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about how Watson could be the guy. I could certainly see, obviously, he's been amazing. It feels gross to go away from him. But going away from Hopkins, Fuller, and Watson, a game flow where Lamar Miller scores a couple touchdowns, maybe they get a defensive touchdown, and they don't really have to, put the gas down against this Colts team. That's a situation in which they could fail for sure. So I like going to someone like Drew Brees if you're going to spend up a quarterback outside of him. Guy like Michael Thomas already mentioned. I think that makes a ton of sense. One spot I'm curious your guys' take, Julio Jones as a pivot. I mean, it's scary as hell, but it's kind of interesting. It's obviously on the road. I think he'll be really low owned because I think people paying up at receiver are going to look to guys like Des Bryant, Michael Thomas, and DeAndre Hopkins. But yeah, that's kind of a high expensive pivot. The other way to go about it is to go really cheap. And I think these backup quarterbacks could be really interesting, especially on DraftKings where we want to save at that position. So it makes me, kind of want to throw up in my mouth. But do you guys like Drew Stanton stacks at all if you're trying to save? I mean, going against the San Francisco team that plays up in pace, it's risky for sure. But, at a price tag of $4,700.
Yeah, you got to think about it.
Other ways. I mean, that's another way I think you could be contrarian. Raybon, what do you think about Stan? I have no conviction either way, but price tag and matchup, it's an amazing spot.
In tournaments, I'll do it. In cash games, I think this week for me, this is kind of different than how it goes a lot of the time, but I think I really want to kind of pay up for some predictability at quarterback and running back, just because I don't really see many receivers that, we know receivers are just kind of volatile. And this week, I think, I don't really see a situation where DeAndre is $1,400 more expensive on DraftKings than any other receiver. So I don't really see a situation where even if I pay down for some receivers that I don't really feel, obviously as good about as I would paying to the middle or upper tier, I don't feel like anyone can really get a true edge on me. By paying up at wide receiver and down at QB. So I'm kind of okay. I mean, in tournaments, and I think you have to look at Stanton just because of how bad that defense has been for San Francisco. I'm not sure exactly what to expect from Bruce Arians in the spot. Like, is he gonna ride his new toy and Adrian Peterson, or what is he gonna do? But I think it's certainly interesting to, Stanton to Larry Fitzgerald. I believe it was a primetime game, either last year or the year before, but Stanton threw like two touchdowns to Fitz against the 49ers, and I think Fitz had over 100 yards. So I definitely like that Stanton Fitz stack. I think you get it. It's like 47 for Stanton, 5,900 for Larry. So I do like that. But as far as I'll probably be pivoting off a lot of the expensive chalk at wide receiver in cash games anyway, just because, again, I don't really see anyone really getting an edge on me if they're paying up 9,200 for Hopkins, or if they're taking what I still think is a pretty big risk on a guy like Julio or even Michael Thomas, because I do see the Saints kind of they've kind of shifted this. I mean, if you look at Drew Brees' yardage this year, it's nowhere near where it's been before. And I think this Tampa Bay team, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen with Jameis. I know he's a little banged up. So this might be another situation where they're just not quite throwing as much as we've been used to them with those outrageous home splits that they've accrued over these last few years.
Yeah, defense is playing better for the Saints. Great offensive line. They're running more. That certainly is a concern. The only thing that I like about it is I do think, in general, throwing against Tampa Bay can be pretty easy. So, I totally get it, though. I do think that's been the MO, kind of the shift that the Saints want to make, is better defense and running the football effectively.
Freeman, one thing that we see is like on Monday night, those players are not priced appropriately just because the salaries come out before the game starts. Is there some sort of effect of that with like some of the traded players, whether it's, Ajayi or even just like Devin Funchess in the 5K range this week as now like the number one wide receiver?
Yeah, Funchess is probably a little undervalued because of the trade. Ajayi now with the Eagles, the thing is because he is when is that Dolphins game? Is that off of the main slate?
Yeah.
I think so. So his salary doesn't carry over. He's still not on the main slate. So it's an interesting situation with him where even though now he's on a main slate team, he himself is not on the main slate. But sticking with that team, I'm actually interested in Wentz as a pivot play. The Eagles are big home favorites. They're going against the Broncos. The Broncos have been exploitable in the passing game, but they still have a very good reputation. I mean, they're still a good defense. So I think Wentz is going to have a pretty low ownership, but there could be a lot to be excited about with him. I'm going to throw up while saying these two names at running back, but Darkwa and Peterson are interesting guys in that they're cheap and they have fantastic matchups. Darkwa going against the Rams and Peterson going against the 49ers. Those two teams have allowed the most fantasy points to opposing backfields. So there is some potential there. AJ Green going against Jacksonville. That's a horrible matchup. Everyone knows that with Jalen Ramsey and AJ Bouye there. But the two like high caliber elite wide receivers who have gone against Jacksonville this year, and Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, both of those guys have actually had success against Jacksonville. I think AJ Green is in that caliber of receiver. So, I think if you're getting him at like 4%, maybe 2% ownership, it's something to look at. And I don't mind sinking on the T.Y. Hiltanic. So I will probably kind of go back to the Colts wide receiver one more time.
I definitely want props versus Wentz. 100% want props versus Wentz. And AJ Green, we'll revisit that one. I think I want some props there. But Wentz, I want to just go all in on that.
So here's the thing, though. Part of it is that I'm talking about this as a pivot play.
I know you're not saying you like or love with these guys. I'll give you some good odds there, Freedman.
Okay, because a lot of this just has to do with ownership.
I'm really worried. I think the Peters injury on the offensive line is a problem. Obviously, the Broncos, looked really bad in Kansas City, but the defense still played really well. They were given a short field so many different times. Kelsey's kind of the perfect weapon against the Broncos. You put receivers against these guys, and I really think their defensive line can win with Peters out. So
Ertz.
I get Ertz.
Ertz is going to smash that defense.
He's the guy, but I think they might do something. I think I hear you, especially after seeing what Kelsey did. Ertz should smash, but I don't know. Wentz and them want to throw. A lot of their offense is on these deep balls, I will take some props on that.
All right.
Let's keep on moving here. Let's talk about some conventional stacks. What are some that we're considering this week? Obviously, like some that might be conventional are also going to be very expensive, like DeAndre Hopkins is going to cost you a pretty penny. But we can talk about whichever ones stand out to you guys. Raybon, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I like this. I like Deshaun to Will Fuller. I mean, at this point, you're getting that discount on Hopkins if you're going with the Watson Fuller stack. And I mean, Fuller essentially has similar upside to DeAndre in terms of, DeAndre is going to catch more balls, but Fuller's just getting targeted, deep. And when he's getting targeted deep, these deep targets can easily turn into touchdowns. Like it's kind of at that part of the field where if he catches it, it's a touchdown. And he caught a couple red zone scores, I think, in that first Tennessee game. So I think you can't ignore Fuller. I know we're all waiting for him to kind of regress with that. He's only getting a handful of targets per game, but this Colts defense is not necessarily the one. And, Fuller, with his speed and with Malik Hooker out for the Colts and Rashawn Melvin, I'm not sure what's up with him, if he's going to play this week or not. But, that Colts secondary has been struggling. And I really like the discount you can kind of get if you're going to pay up for Watson, kind of get that little discount on Fuller versus DeAndre. So that's kind of one of my favorite conventional stacks.
Yeah. Pete, what are some conventional stacks that you're looking at for week 9? Sorry.
Yeah, I think those are really good calls. I think it makes a lot of sense to attack in that regard. There's some other stacks I don't know if they're going to be that conventional. I think that we'll see just in general kind of ownership spread out quite a bit. But I'll go to Russ Wilson, Jimmy Graham. We think he's going to be the chalk. I think Russell Wilson is really coming into form. We've seen him do extremely well at the end of the year. Obviously, we're kind of past that halfway point now. It's in that range where he starts to play extremely well. Obviously, a huge game versus the Texans. And against this Washington team, I think he'll be successful again. The interesting thing here is which guy is going to go off. Jimmy Graham obviously is fortunate to have the 2 touchdowns, but Richardson looked good. Lockett's kind of looking explosive again. Obviously, Baldwin's an option. So figuring out who to pair Russell Wilson with is kind of the challenge, but I do think from a conventional standpoint, in terms of ownership, I expect Graham and Wilson to be the most popular of the stacks.
Interesting. All right, so we have Drew Brees at home in the Superdome against maybe the worst pass defense in the league, and we haven't discussed him and Michael Thomas as a conventional stack.
Receiver.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that you guys are wrong. I'm saying that sort of informs the slate. Like, that's interesting. That means that maybe people will be rostering him lower than we might expect. Freedman, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. Our ownership projections are up now as we are recording this, and we are projecting Drew Brees to be one of the 3 highest owned quarterbacks. I don't think it's that he's going to be under-owned, and I think especially he's not going to be under-owned relative to his production for this season. I think he will probably be owned right around where he should be. But obviously he always has potential there in the Superdome. I'm with Raybon and Pete with the guys that they've mentioned. Deshaun Jackson, I want him with basically anyone who's owned, like anyone who's employed by that organization. Like the grounds crew, whatever. I kind of don't care. I want to stack everyone with him. And then Russell Wilson, I think any of those pass catchers for Seattle, I'm good with those guys.
Cool. All right, let's keep on moving. Let's talk about some contrarian stacks. Pete, I'll start with you. What are some of the standing out this week?
Cam Newton to Christian McCaffrey. Maybe Christian McCaffrey will garner some ownership as we get later into the week, but I think that's a good way to attack Atlanta, these pass-catching backs. And Christian McCaffrey, obviously is labeled as a running back, but he's really more of a receiver for this team. And with Kelvin Benjamin gone, I think that's a nice way to capitalize. I think intuition is going to be, I should stack Cam to Funchess now. But I think a good way to kind of go away from that's more contrarian would be to go Cam and Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is going to have a huge game here at some point this season, and I think it's a good spot here against the Falcons.
Raybon, what are some contrarian stacks that stand out to you, whether it's, low and wide receiver or even just like Pete mentioned, like a quarterback, running back? People usually don't do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to have some Deshaun and Lamar Miller. Like, I think that's a smash spot for those guys, especially since he's thrown him, I believe it's 2 touchdowns in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So that one. But I in this game, I think you can do a lot of interesting just game stacks where you can kind of go maybe a Lamar Miller, Jack Doyle or something like that, where we saw last week with Indianapolis kind of, down in that game and having to keep pace with the Bengals, which they pretty much have to keep pace with everybody because their defense is so bad at this point. You're going to see Doyle get a lot of targets. Been one of the most heavily targeted tight ends in the league. And I actually think Doyle might be chalk, though, in cash games at least. I think an interesting stack is Christian McCaffrey and Devin Funchess against this Atlanta defense. I think you could kind of buy into, even without using Cam, you can just kind of buy into, perhaps the top two receivers or just the top two highest scoring players in a game that it's a close game, that the over-under isn't that high, but we know both of these offenses have potential. So you could go, McCaffrey, Funchess, and run it back with some and some Julio Jones or somebody like that. Mohamed Sanu, I think Mohamed Sanu is kind of going underrated. I was really high on him last week. I think that, people aren't really noticing that he's kind of his opportunity in that offense this year hasn't been too much different from Julio Jones. Julio Jones gets a few more deep targets, but Sanu's been out targeting Julio in the red zone, and his target share is hovering around that 25% mark, which is really good for any wide receiver if you take out the game where he left injured. So I like that stack. And I do like that Wentz call. I think that's kind of a situation where you kind of look at a quarterback who is playing well versus a defense who's playing well. And I think, people might really overlook it. And I don't think that Wentz it's like a smash spot for Wentz, but I've been talking about this a lot. When you have these mobile quarterbacks, I think you kind of have to throw some of these matchups out the window because these quarterbacks, you can have a good defense that covers all the receivers. And then if you can kind of escape the pocket a little bit, you can kind of, make something happen off schedule. And that kind of throws all those metrics out the window. So I like that. And I like Dak Prescott to Dez Bryant, perhaps bringing it back around with pretty much any Chief. I mean, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, or even Kareem Hunt if you want to really go crazy. But I think Dak and Dez now with Ezekiel Elliott out, we really don't know exactly what's going to happen with that running game. Kansas City still has been solid against the tight end, even with Eric Berry out. So I like that Dak-Dez stack. I'm not sure where the chalk level will be on that at this point. I know Dez has a pretty good salary. We know he's going to be targeted in the red zone pretty much as anybody, and I think that shouldn't go overlooked. The fact that with Ezekiel Elliott out, Dez Bryant essentially becomes their goal line back, and so does Dak Prescott. So Dak Prescott and Dez Bryant are their goal line back there. So I think you have that multi-touchdown, perhaps even triple touchdown upside for Dez, and Dak could run in at least one too. So I like that Dak to Dez with a member of the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So just looking at these Vegas lines here, I mean, that Dallas-Kansas City game has the highest total of the week right now at 51 points. And, we really haven't mentioned players until Raybon just brought them up. What does that say about the slate, Freedman?
Well, I think part of it is that Zeke is gone and Kareem Hunt is super expensive, and it's a slate where people might not want to pay up for that most expensive guy. And then other than that, you have on Dallas a team that has been pretty run heavy, especially last year, but even in the last few games, very dependent on Zeke. And so there's a lot of uncertainty as to what they will be doing on offense. So I definitely like those calls by Raybon. Definitely agree with the Dallas stacks there. I think Brees to Kamara is probably something of a contrarian stack, even though both of those guys will be fairly popular. They might not be rostered all that often in the same lineup. I like Wilson with some of his secondary receivers, some of the non-Baldwin or non-Graham receivers, and then running it back with someone like Chris Thompson, who I think obviously he's running incredibly hot right now, but you never want to depend on a guy being able to stay super efficient, but he basically is their primary back at this point and probably their best receiver. So I like him there in a Seattle game stack. And then, I don't know how contrarian this will be, but Wentz to Ertz, I think Wentz is going to have pretty low ownership. And I think if you are wanting to stack him with someone, it has to be Ertz. Maybe you include other guys in that, but I think Ertz has to be in that stack.
Yeah. Freeman, just real quick, you're the Dallas guy. What are you expecting from backfield, McFadden, Morris? Break it down even.
I don't know. It's blind, really. I have absolutely no idea. Like, some smart people are saying McFadden, but and I can definitely see that because he is, out of the two, he's the one who's a little more well-rounded. But Alf is the guy who's been the backup the whole time. So I don't know. I really have no idea.
Fair. Okay. All right, let's keep on moving. Last segment before we get to our skill game props. Bold calls. I'm going to ask each of you for one bold real football call and then one bold DFS call. Pete, I'll roll to you first here.
Bold call. I'm going to stick with Kamara. Kamara outscores Ingram. Obviously, I think Ingram's a safer cash game play, but I'm going to stay with Kamara. At some point, this guy's just going to have a gargantuan game. Love the way he's getting targeted in the passing game. Obviously, his best game came in London, but I think Ingram will continue to be a guy I rely on in cash, and I really like the kind of the pivot going to Kamara for tournaments. And then kind of a bold call. I don't know how bold it is, but I think the Giants will win this game at home. Hopefully, they have things a little bit more figured out. And as a home dog in this spot, I think the Giants are a pretty good play. Kind of goes with what Matt was saying with Darkwa. Hopefully, they can get the running game going and play really good defense like we saw last year.
Cool. Raybon, what are some bold calls you got for us?
For DFS, I'll go Ryan Griffin is the top scoring tight end this week. Everybody's going to be on Fuller. Everybody's going to be on Hopkins. The Colts defense is bad against everybody. And I think Griffin is kind of the guy where we've seen him. I think he caught a deep touchdown against the Patriots. He can kind of come alive when he needs. I think he got 8 targets against the Browns. So I think I'm going to go with him as a top scoring tight end. As far as a real football call, I'm going to go with that's a good one. I'm going to say that the Baltimore Ravens, with their backup quarterback, beat the Tennessee Titans at home.
Cool. All right, Freedman, round us out here.
Okay, so for real, I'm going with the Seahawks. They're at home. They're favored by 8. I think that should be closer to 10. And specifically because of the injuries along the Washington offensive line. So I think the Seahawks at home win by 2 touchdowns. And then for DFS, I'm going with Will Fuller. I think about a month ago I said he was like the second coming of OBJ, which, I think I probably nailed that one in a small sample size. But I'm going back to the well there. I think he gets 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against a Colts secondary, which, as Raybon pointed out, is bad and also now injured.
Freedman, you want to hear something fucking tilting last year? I had a bet with Smizzle that Will Fuller would have at least 150 yards and a touchdown in the game at one point in time throughout the year. And I lost that prop bet because he didn't get the 150 yards, and Smiz won. And now, of course, he's going just absolutely.
It's like every week, yeah. At this point.
Yeah, I want to say, I don't think that this is a fluke. I mean, the touchdowns, that's going to regress at some point. But he is a very, he's fast. He's getting targeted deep in a Deshaun Jackson way, but he is so much better than Deshaun Jackson as a receiver. Deshaun Jackson didn't have nearly the receiving production in college that Fuller had. He was just utterly dominant as a touchdown producer at Notre Dame. So it's part of why I don't think the touchdowns are fluky. This is unreal, but even when he regresses to a normal touchdown pattern, I think he's still going to be a pretty good touchdown producer for a guy who is on the smaller side.
Yeah, he was incredible at Notre Dame. Totally agree. Would catch slants, bring him to the house, had just some ridiculous plays. And the big benefit that he has is playing opposite Hopkins, who is going to get the safety a lot, which, that's a huge advantage for Fuller, especially as a deep play guy.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's spend a couple of minutes before we get out of here just going over some skill game props.
Right now at 19.8.
Oh, yes. Take the under on that.
But, again, we have to adjust it down. Because, I'll
give you a point. I'll give you a point. That's still our projection, bud.
Yeah, but the bold call on it has to do with the ownership, the ownership discount. So if we're not taking the ownership into account.
Every prop we do, we just take the FantasyLabs projection.
Okay, but what I'm saying
There's
is
occasional where we'll move it like a point and a half. I mean,
okay, I'll take a point and a half. I'll take the point and a half. You're like trying to put me in a corner with like me
Fine.
on a pivot play that's based on ownership.
Let's go 18 and a half. Are you guys okay with that as the arbiter here?
Let me. That's a great counter by Freedman. Let me get something else in here just real quickly. Let me find. How about this? I'll give you that. I'll give you a point and a half if you give me Alex Smith versus Carson Wentz straight up too.
Sure.
Done.
Yeah.
Done.
Raybon, you want in on either side of that?
I would take that Alex Smith over Carson Wentz.
Yeah. I'm just giving that away.
I like it, Freedman. You're a changed man since last year's pod, though. Doing well.
It's just giving away Coors Light.
Freedman, throw out some stuff.
Okay, let me see here. I'm interested in Deshaun Watson. So right now we have him as the highest projected quarterback, 26.6 in terms of like his median projection. I think that's high, but whatever. I'll take the over if anyone wants the under.
Why don't we do a draft? You get Deshaun Watson, then whoever can get any two quarterbacks, and your third guy has to be like 6K or below.
We're doing a 2 versus 2?
Yeah.
How about this? I think this is a good one. You can either take Deshaun Watson and a backup quarterback that's starting this week, or you can take 2 other quarterbacks, highest scorer wins. That has to be fair.
How is that fair?
I'll take Watson and another one.
Watson has so much equity, Freedman.
I'll take Watson, buddy. I mean, I'll take either side of that. That's why I'm throwing out a real prop because I'm willing to take either side.
All right. Look,
that's not bad, honestly. Yeah,
who are the backups who are starting?
We got Stanton. Beathard still technically counts. Hundley counts. Osweiler potentially counting.
Flacco, we have no idea on whether Flacco is or isn't playing, right?
Yeah.
I
mean, you still got some options there, buddy. Stanton, Hundley, Beathard.
All right. Okay. I'll do Watson. I'll take Watson. Take whoever you want out of the 2 starters.
I'll take. Wait, are we doing all slates or are we doing?
Let's do main slate.
So does Flacco not count as a backup quarterback? Thank you, Raybon.
All right, I'm taking Brees and Prescott.
Yeah, of course.
Brees and back.
Okay.
You're turning it in. Like, I feel like, Brees is not flashing that same ceiling like Raybon touched on, but hopefully
this is horrible.
You get Watson.
How is it horrible?
I don't know what I've done here.
You should just switch sides. Pete will take the other side.
I'll do Stanton.
Like that big of a dog, just Watson versus the other 2.
I'll do Stanton.
Yeah, that's what I'd take. I think that's reasonable. And just scoring one.
By the way, Stanton literally has the second lowest ceiling projection in our model.
Yeah,
there is no way that Stanton finishes as the highest scoring quarterback in the slate.
Well, it doesn't have to. It just has to be out of these guys. Does it?
Yeah.
Let's see here. What was Drew Stanton's best game last year?
I think he started only one game last year. So he won
2015 that he had all those games.
Yeah, he started I think 9 games or 8 games that year, something like that.
Oh, it's looking bad.
It's not pretty. It's not pretty for me. Raybon, do you want in on any of that? I'll take Watson and you draft 2.
Yeah. I'll do Russ Wilson and Alex Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
I like that. I like Russ Wilson. I almost took him.
Okay. I will dive.
He's like Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers. He's their whole offense. He throws deep. He throws off schedule. Like, he just rolls out and makes things happen and throws deep. Like, he's essentially like what Aaron Rodgers was. He's not as good as Aaron Rodgers, but for DFS, like, I think he's going to be that going forward.
I like it. I'll do Stanton again. Brian, you want to know that or no?
Sure. Yeah, I'll take. Sorry, I was looking at another prop I was about to throw out. Yeah, sure. I'll do Wilson and Dak.
Yeah, take advantage.
Yeah.
All right.
What are your guys' thoughts on? So Ertz is the best tight end, right, of the week. What would like a line be on him versus Jimmy Graham?
Okay, so right now we have Ertz projected for 15.9, and we have Graham projected for 11.9.
So +4.
Yeah, so pretty clean there.
Okay. So I would take Graham +4 if you guys want Ertz.
I want Graham.
I'll
take Ertz. So
Okay.
2v2.
2v2. All right,
We
I
get
like
the
it.
+4?
We get the +4, Pete.
Yeah.
And this is perfect. We're leveraging Freedman here to get he's either going to come back with I like it.
This is going to be a horrible week.
No, it's like, I see what you're doing, and I love it. So sharp.
It's going to be a horrible week. I think I had a great week last week. I say that without remembering most of my props. I'm remembering just a couple of them in which I smashed Silva. But other than that, I don't remember. But on the basis of beating Silva on a couple of props, I think I had a great week last week. So I'm due for some major regression here.
No. You're due to look like a genius here. I like it quite a bit. I'll throw out let's see here. Let's go to running backs here. I think running back is certainly interesting overall this week in terms of chalk. We mentioned the New Orleans guys. I mean, I've been hammering Kamara in general. What do you guys want to give me the projection again? 15.8. I'll take the over.
Yeah, so we have Ingram at 19.5 and then Kamara at 15.8.
I'll give you the difference, Bub, if you want Ingram, and then I want Kamara just straight up over it too.
I'm with you on Kamara going over, so I won't take the under on that.
I'll do over 16.8. Okay, look at me just taking the overs. I'm doing all these things here for you.
But the thing, I'm not interested in that because I'm bullish on Kamara. But I'll do Ingram versus Kamara with the spread there.
All right, fine. 3.7 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
give me 4 points, buddy. You wouldn't give me the other.
Okay, 4 points.
All right, Freedman, I like it.
Yeah.
Brian, you gonna get in here on any of this? He's on mute.
I'll take the Ingram side. I do like Ingram. All right. I'd like to take the over on Adrian Peterson if anyone wants the under.
What is this projection?
12.6.
12 points.
I'll take Kamara. I'll give you 3 points with Adrian Peterson.
Okay, sure.
I'm on Pete's side for that.
Yeah, sure. I figured you would be.
Although I don't mind Peterson in that matchup. I really don't.
Great matchup for him.
Yeah.
I'll take the straight up under on Peterson 12.6.
Okay, cool.
Like he's gonna average 2.1 yards per carry.
I'll take
I'll take the under. I'll take what's over under Adrian Peterson 3.5 yards per carry this week.
Okay, so I'm gonna do under on Brian's and how many you said 3.6 yards per carry?
That's a 3.5.
3.5? Yeah, I'll do on. No, I'm not gonna do under, but it's tempting.
So I mean, it could be under, and he could also go over 12 fantasy points pretty easily. I mean, the Stan's their quarterback against San Francisco. So
I'll take Christian McCaffrey, who has a lower projection than Kamara, and I'll give you 3 points on Adrian Peterson too, if you want it. And I do the same thing with Lamar Miller. I take Miller here. I want to take all these guys, giving you 3 points, Brian.
I don't believe this strongly about Adrian Peterson. I like this situation.
He doesn't want to ruin that record. Doesn't want a lot of leverage.
I like Adrian Peterson this week. I just don't want 900 bets on him. I also don't want to
get like 5 or 6 here, Brian. And we're trying to up your volume. Take a stance here, bud.
I also don't want to make any bets on Christian McCaffrey because I obviously have I'm very sensitive.
All right, well, give me Lamar Miller then. I'll even give you 4 points. How about that?
Where's Lamar?
He's at 15.1. I'm giving you an extra 1.5.
All right. Yeah, sure. Let's just get some volume.
Yeah, I'll jump on Pete's side of that.
Freeman, you're killing me here.
What? We have like the open rule that anyone can basically jump on any prop.
Yep. Get the volume up, boys. That's what we're trying to do here. Trying to get the volume up. Chris, any takes that you want to get out there? Any guys you want to get? Well, you're the guest, so you basically get to call your own shots here.
What's your guys' projection on Sammy Watkins this week?
Ooh, Sammy Watkins.
Wow.
I like that call, even though I do like the Giants. You think he's going to do well with Jenkins?
Yeah, with him out. Jenkins is out. He's been suspended indefinitely.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't admit that.
Yeah.
So when did that happen? I'm an idiot.
Today. That happened today.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
I
why
don't feel stupid because I was doing golf and NBA and all this other stuff. So that's good.
So we have him projected for 8.8.
All right, so I'll take the over on that if anyone wants the under.
We have to give it.
Yeah, I'll take the under.
Yeah.
Who else?
By the way, Raybon, our guests are killing us so far this season. So I think
That makes sense with us being such donkeys, but
you're following in a proud tradition of people just slaying us.
Silva might have let down the guests big time last week, though. I say that now, and Silva probably crushed.
What do we got? Well, you got Mike Evans projected for.
Oh, that's a guy I don't mind shorting.
We got him
16.1.
Yeah, I'll go under on that.
I like under on that too. You're a believer in Lattimore as a total stud, aren't you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm just believing that. Like
That defense.
No joke. I wrote up the Saints D. I said play them in cash that week when they scored.
That was the Levitan called it too. I did play it in cash. That was savior.
I'm a believer, man. I'm a believer. I think they look a lot better.
Yeah, that defense is good, especially that secondary. That combination of Crawley and Lattimore is good. They're the only weak link.
Lattimore might be like really, really good.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the top-rated corners on PFF right now.
Yeah.
Oh, he might be number one actually.
He is.
He's up there. But the thing about Evans is you're essentially betting on whether you think he's going to score a touchdown or not. He actually hasn't gone over 100 yards in I think 11 or 12 straight games going back to last season. So like if he doesn't get a touchdown, you're good on that short, on that under 16.
Yeah,
I like the short. Who? I mean,
I'll take the over just to give you guys some action, but it's not as if I'm like having strong convictions on that. I would lean otherwise on the under.
Good golf clap for you there, Freedman. I have to take the bad side of the equity next. So Freedman, you just took it there.
All right, Pete. So this is in the Sunday or the FanDuel main slate, Sunday Night Football. One of the strongest pass funnel defenses in the league, the Miami Dolphins.
I'm all in, buddy.
How are we feeling about this situation?
I'm all in. I sent you guys that screenshot of last week. I mean, it's
Yep, I saw it.
Amari Cooper. Had he had that performance any other week, I mean, boys, I don't even know if I'd be here right now. I might be in freaking Taiwan or somewhere. I might be somewhere great.
That was your first thought?
No, it's not my first thought. I'd probably be in Hawaii. Maybe you can't play DFS either. But Amari Cooper is just.
I mean, you got him against the Dolphins. I mean, it's like, what else do you want?
We had Amari Cooper versus Crabtree, which you guys shredded me on.
Yeah,
6-2.
I was about to say we should just go Cooper Crabtree. I'll take Crabtree.
I'll take Cooper, and if you guys want to leverage it 2 units across the board this week, I'm down for it too. So we have our one already standing. If you want to do another one,
and we get a point, Freedman.
Not the point. We already have the one that's a point. That one's already established. But I'll offer it again, just straight up Crabtree.
Straight up. All right, I think Raybon wants you on that one.
All right, sure, whatever.
Yeah, come on, Pete. We'll do it.
What do you mean, the number 1 receiver versus the number 2 receiver? That's an easy call.
Wow.
Well played. Well deserved.
Man, Silva was making Pete so happy on last week's podcast because he just went on this rant about how defenses treat crap.
I have a huge problem. We have a huge addiction to Amari Cooper. I mean, some people get addicted to heroin. Some people get addicted to pain pills, alcohol. Nope, none of that for me. Just Amari Cooper.
Pete, how about this? For the rest of the season, you give me a prop where you take Amari Cooper and I will take Cooper Kupp, and you give me points, obviously.
Okay.
How many points do you think you should be giving?
And you're locking it in every week.
Let's ask a third party. Raybon, what do you think the fair line is? Cooper Kupp versus Amari Cooper. And I've actually rostered a lot of Kupp this year. I think that there's a good connection with Goff there, and anytime the slot has a good matchup, I've been on Kupp.
Yeah, I like Kupp. I would say Cooper.
DraftKings point.
Yeah, I would say you give him about
3 points.
I want to say about 3. Yeah, I 3.5. 3.5.
Okay.
Done.
3.5 is what I think I would have come up with. So I'm fine with that. Booked for the rest of the season.
Freedman, you're making me so proud. That's such a great prop. That's well done, sir.
Cooper versus Cooper. Are there any other Coopers that we need to integrate here?
The Amari Cooper Cup.
I'm ready to get all the leverage I possibly can. At least if I don't have any money after this year with Amari Cooper, I'll have a ton of Coors Lights to drown my sorrows. So that's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get some leverage here, boys. Or
you got it.
Spend my last dollar on the Coors Lights to have fun with you boys. So either way, that's
all right, let's do a defensive prop and then we'll get out of here.
Wait, hold on. I want to get a little last thing before the defense. I want at least one more Amari Cooper prop. Who else?
Sure. Who do you want him against?
Let me see. What's his DK projection here right now? He's projected for
12.5 points.
Wow, that's egregious. We should have him way higher than that.
All right, well then let's.
I'm kidding. Man, if you pull up Amari's game log, there's one big green arrow and then just a whole bunch of red arrows just straight down in his plus minus.
It's not great. It's not great. Oh gosh.
He's only cleared the projection twice this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you guys take any receiver versus him that's under 7,000 on DraftKings outside of Doug Baldwin, 6,800 and less.
Okay, how about this?
So Dez Bryant is fine.
Who?
Dez is fine.
Isn't Dez like 78? I said under 68.
Dez is 64.
Dez is 64?
Yeah.
I like that stack with that.
Yeah, you just got done, bro.
That's fine. Take him. I offered it.
Yeah, he's the obvious one. Dez's cash at like 6'4" is ridiculous. I agree.
Okay, I'm going to take that. But then, Pete, I also want to offer Will Fuller plus 1.5 versus Cooper.
What, I get 1.5 with Cooper versus your Fuller?
Yeah, so Fuller we have projected for 13.9, and then Coop is
that's my guy. I freaking love Fuller.
And then Coop is projected for like 12.5, something like that. So like I'm giving you the difference in our projections, but I'll take Fuller.
He's testing your Cooper love right now, Pete.
Fine. He took some bad equity at the Evans one. I'll give it to you. Even though on the record I love Will Fuller this week.
Fair enough.
But it's booked.
Hey, more DK points for Amari Cooper, more real life points for Tim Hardaway on Sunday. Are they playing?
That's a good one. I'd probably take the Hardaway points though.
Yeah.
All right, let's do defenses and get out of here.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see here.
Let's see here. Guys, let's just do a draft. Let's do a draft here.
Yeah.
So the number one defense this week looks like it's probably going to be like the Jags or the Texans, even though the Texans are so beat up. The Seattle defense is probably my pick, actually, as like the number one defense this week.
All right, you want to start there?
I'll go first. Do you guys want to do the first and then the 2, 3, and then another pick, and then you get the last pick? You get 3 defenses versus 2. Is that what you guys want to do?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so
repeat that,
Chris. You get to choose what you want. You can either have the 1 pick and the 4 pick, or you can have the 2, 3, 5, and it's just whoever is the highest scoring wins.
I'd take the 2, 3, 5.
Yeah, I think that's probably the better
one.
I'll do that for all you guys. Give you guys some equity here. I'm taking Seattle first.
Why don't you do 1, 4, 6? Because Jacksonville and Houston are pretty close, right?
Okay. I mean, I think that's more fair. I just feel bad since I offered it.
Yeah, Brian, what are you doing?
How about this? 1, 5, 6 versus 2, 3, 4. That's reasonable. That's actually fair. That's actually like a legit thing.
Okay. All right.
And then Raybon, you're the guest. Which one do you want out of those?
Wait, you said 1, 5, 6, or 2 what?
2, 3, 4.
2, 3, 4.
Okay. All right. So I'll go against all you guys and we'll get out of here. I'm going to take Seattle defense first. All three of you guys can go in terms of who you.
Raybon, you want to go first?
Sure. I'll go the Philadelphia Eagles against the Denver Broncos, 32nd ranked schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing defenses.
Yeah, do you want to pick all? Yeah.
Yeah, pick all four. Or pick all three.
I think we're going to have the same three. I think we're going to have the same three, which is Philly, Houston, Jacksonville, right?
Brian Page, Philly, Houston, Jacksonville. Who do you want, Chris?
No, I don't want Philly. I don't want Houston. Wait. You said who? So we got Jacksonville. We got Philly. You guys want? You said you guys want Houston as a third one?
That's who
I want.
Okay. I mean, I don't trust Houston's defense. I think this could actually be like a little shootout.
Who do you want? You got Philly. Who else do you want, Chris? I'd have lost Chris there. Matt, why don't you go?
Okay, I will do Philly.
Philly. I can't choose what.
Here, Raybon, what were you saying there?
I was saying who can I can just choose like any three, or I have to choose guys that you guys.
Any three that you want.
Three, yeah.
Okay, yeah, Philly, and I can't choose Jacksonville though, right?
No, you can.
You can.
Anyone other than Seattle.
Oh yeah, Philly, Jacksonville, Seattle.
No, anyone other than Seattle. I took Seattle, so you got Philly, Jacksonville, then you just need a third one.
And any other team, yeah.
And the Saints.
Oh damn! I wanted the Saints. All right, Freedman, go ahead.
Okay, I will do Philly. I will do Jacksonville, and I will also do the Saints.
Okay, so against Brian, I'm taking the Saints, and I'm taking the Broncos. Against – actually, no, I'm going to take Tennessee. Sorry about that. I'm going to take Tennessee and the Saints versus Brian. Versus you guys, I'm going to take Tennessee. I'll take Houston. Why not? I'll take the spot here versus the rookie quarterback. I don't trust them that much, but I'll take Tennessee and Houston versus both of you guys.
Yeah, it's good. Cool. I like it.
All right. We are going to get out of here. Thank you guys for listening. As always, good luck in Week 9. Hope to see FantasyLabs people at the top of the leaderboard. And definitely thanks to Chris Raybon for coming on. Chris, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah,
right.
Before we get out of here, definitely listen to the DFS MVP. Listen to it every week for the last couple of years. Chris is doing a killer job with TJ Hernandez. So thanks for coming on, Chris, and definitely check that out.
Thanks, homie.
Cool. All right. Talk to you guys next week.